Hey guys, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about the list of amazing RPGs that came out last year in 2022. Now, there's a whole plethora of RPGs of all different styles, of all different kinds, for all different systems that you can get into if you're interested. Today I have 35 of them. Now that of course is not exhaustive. There is plenty of RPGs all over that I did not include here. That said, this is a list that I have curated out of ones that I found interesting that covered different styles and looks and aesthetics to try to put together a list that makes sense while not covering every little 2-bit RPG from Kemco or whatever that is a kind of throwaway, right? So if your favorite isn't on here, forgive me, let me know what it is. Maybe I just didn't see it. But we're gonna start from January and work our way through the year so that we see a whole picture of things that released throughout the year. All right, now come with me on this journey and let's check out the amazing RPGs from 2022. The first game up is Expeditions Rome that came out on PC. Now, this was January 20th, and this is a game that's kind of a light CRPG, right? These Expedition games, they have a few of them. This one, of course, is in the Roman era, the Roman aesthetic. Now, the idea of this game is pretty cool. The aesthetic is good. It's got a good story. It's a very, I would say, a beginner's kind of CRPG. Okay, now if you got Baldur's Gate 3, that probably takes the cake. That's probably a better beginner one. But this is a little bit shorter. It's a little more digestible than your average CRPG. And so I think this is a good starter one. It was a good one to come out the year, and everyone that I know who has played it has said really good things about it. This reviewed pretty well. It got an 80 on Metacritic, so it's not your standout 90s, but 80 is a good score. It's a good, solid CRPG. Now, when I say bite-sized, understand I'm saying 40 to 50 hours in that range. But when compared to usual CRPGs that come in at that 70 to 90 pretty regularly, I would say that's still pretty good. All right, that's number one. Moving on to number two is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Now I know that not everyone is into Pokemon, and RPG mechanics, they can sometimes get a little light, right? They are not your big boy, big long series RPGs. That said, they are an RPG. There is a role-playing element, there's the picking of the Pokemon and all of the different things, and this one has a little more story to it, a little more investment. Now, this was a bit polarizing. Some people really loved this game while others really did not, but I felt like it was a good entry level one, that especially for maybe you're older, you're kind of tired of the old Pokemon formula, or you're newer and feel overwhelmed by the level of the standard Pokemon games. I think that this provided a really nice entry point for that series. It also got a pretty good score. It's an 83 on Metacritic, which I know, look, Metacritic is not the end-all be-all, but it does give a barometer as to how people felt about the game. And so that's why I use it. Pokemon games really vary for their playtime, depending on if you're gonna do shiny hunting or any of that kind of stuff, or competitive, or what you're doing. But in Legends Arceus, 20 to 40 hours is pretty average. Well, it's a pretty digestible track there. That's not too bad. Not a huge investment if you don't want it to be, but you get some story. There's a little more action to it, right? This is the one where you're actually throwing the ball and that kind of thing. And so this just gives a little bit more to it. And I thought it was a good entry. Is it the best game ever? No, of course not. But it was a good entry. It was a good game released in January. That was January 28th. All right, next up at number 3 on the 10th of February, we have Edge of Eternity. Now, Edge of Eternity came out on the Xbox and the PS4. It later came out on PC, or maybe earlier, I don't remember. But this is an indie game, okay? This is a smaller team, clearly inspired by Final Fantasy. They called themselves Midgar Studio. I believe it's a French company, correct me if I'm wrong. And they made this pretty cool RPG. It's a turn-based battle system, but it has some unique mechanics where it's not quite a strategy RPG, but there is some hexagon tiles, and you move around and try to set enemies up for traps or to get them from behind and that kind of thing. And it was a pretty good game. The story was pretty good. Some of the character models, of course, they don't have the budget of like a Final Fantasy, and so it's not the best looking game, but it's not bad. It's got some really cool art in there. You get a mount that's really fun and different. I really actually enjoyed this game quite a bit. Is it perfect? Of course not, but there was a lot of enjoyable parts to it. It did not get enough reviews to even really pop up on Metacritic. You can find a 60, I think, on PC and a 67 on maybe PS5, but there's not very many reviews. I think a 7 is a pretty fair rating for this. It's a good game. It's not great. It's not a heavy hitter, but it's not bad. It's not broken. It's totally, you can play through it beginning to end. It's pretty fun. The story comes in and out, right? It's pretty good, but it has some points that kind of fall apart. And the combat can get a little tiresome for grinding. I felt like if there was a faster way to do it, that probably would have helped in that aspect. But for the most part, it was a really well done indie RPG. And it's not too long, probably 30-40 hours in that range. And so, depending on if you want to do everything, it's a lot longer, of course. But yeah, it was a really good entry. All right, next up at number 4, we have another kind of indie style RPG. This is Rise of the Third Power, which also came out on the 10th of February. Came out on everything. Now this is a kind of throwback retro style RPG. The pixel art. The character models are pretty fun. I thought there was a lot of personality in them, especially in the way that they had really good kind of facial expressions as they were going through different things, and the dialogue, the banter between characters was really well done, I thought. Sometimes really kind of cheeky or a little cheesy, right? But most of the time pretty funny. It was really enjoyable. This got a 79, so almost an 80 on Metacritic. It's again right around that 30-hour mark, give or take, depending on how you play. But the battles are quick and snappy and enjoyable to play. The story was fun. It was very lighthearted, so it wasn't like a heavy game. It wasn't something you really had to focus on. It was a good Switch game in that way, I thought, because you kind of played on the side while you had something else you were maybe mainline focusing on. But it was a good entry. It's a fun, cheap RPG. It's $20 normally, but it goes on sale all the time for 10 or less. So really good indie RPG entry there that I thought was quite a bit of fun. All right, next up at number 5 was a heavy hitter. This was February 18th, and that is Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon, of course, is a big heavy hitter from Sony. This is Guerrilla Games. This is the second entry in the series, and this is big time, right? This hit 88 on Metacritic, though I thought it probably could have gone up to a 90. Some people didn't like it, and I think that mainly came to the protagonist. Aloy was very mission focused, and so she kind of came on really strong in a lot of it, but I felt like that really fit her character, and some people definitely did not. They didn't like that, which is okay. That, everyone has their opinion, that's fine, but I thought that Aloy was a great character. I sometimes was annoyed with her and wanted, just talk normal, but it fit, I thought. Her character, it was so focused on something that, the relationship stuff she's not good at, and with her upbringing, that really makes a lot of sense. So I thought it was actually really well done. I really enjoyed this game. The fights were good. The robots were awesome. Again, this one has a huge variety in playtime. You could probably mainline the story in, 20-30 hours, but you want to explore, it's probably 60-70 hours. I got the platinum in this one, and I think it took me right in that 60-hour range. It's a good game. It's really fun. The combat's good. You can really dive in. You can go surface level. You have a lot of options there as far as how in-depth you go, but it's a big open world RPG. I love the world of Horizon. I think that the robot dinosaurs are awesome. They're a really good enemy. The different factions and their care. In this one, they really talked more about the old world, which I really enjoyed. Some of the story stuff wasn't my favorite. I wouldn't say it was awful, but it just maybe wasn't my favorite. But I still thought it was a really good game. It was really engaging. When I played it, I didn't play anything else. I didn't look anywhere else. I was focused and had a great time. It was a heck of a game. Now the thing is, I feel bad for Horizon because they just come out against these mammoth behemoth games, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I thought that was a marquee title of 2022. And it was a great RPG. Next up at number 6 is Monark. Now this came out February 22nd. It came out on the Switch, the PC, and the PS4/5. This is a Persona-light tactical RPG. It's that strategy RPG where you move on the tiles and stuff. Now, here's the thing. Monark is a long game. You're talking 40 hours if you know what you're doing and beeline it, and 60 hours plus to beat the game fully. Part of the problem is I don't know that it holds up for that whole amount of time. Especially the amount of grinding you need in between main missions, especially as you get towards the end. The grind can get really heavy, and the Metacritic score certainly shows that. It's about a 60. Now it's got a 66 on PS5 and like a 56 on PS4 and right in the middle on Switch. So it's in that range, but it's 6 to 7, and that's probably where it belongs. Each person's gonna have, of course, their own little feel for it, but I think it's right in that middle ground. It's not a bad game, it's not broken, but the grinding requirements, at least at launch, were really rough. That said, I think the combat system is good. I like that kind of combat though. I'm a big fan of strategy RPG. I love that style. The upgrading and leveling up and all that kind of thing just suits me. So you got to kind of gauge for yourself if that's something that suits you or not, but I thought it was a good game. I'm really hoping it's a launching point and they move from that on to another thing, taking feedback and revamping and going again, because I thought there was a lot to go from with this one. Not gonna be the best work, but a really good launch point. And so hopefully they make another game in the similar vein and just make all the improvements and quality of life improvements that it needs, and we can have a really banger strategy RPG in another 2 or 3 years. So we'll see what happens, but Monarch was a pretty good option in 2022. All right, next up at number 7 was the big one of the year, and that is, of course, Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring is massive, absolute behemoth of a game. People who are really good at it can beat it in 80 to 100 hours. Maybe faster if you're really good, I don't know. But to really explore, I mean, so easy to spend 150 to 200 hours. This game had incredible world, amazing combat. The exploration was the best I've ever seen. So incredible. I know me and many others I know spent 160 some hours in it. Huge Metacritic game, right? I think 96 on PS5. I think that it was right in that range for everything. This game was incredible. FromSoft is a top tier developer at this point. They have been for a long time, and this is like a crowning jewel. Now everyone has their favorite, so even if Elden Ring isn't your favorite, that's fine, but people who didn't like FromSoft came to them through this game. It sold ridiculous numbers, well over 20 million is my understanding. I'm not sure exactly where it's at. If you know, let me know in the comments. But this game was just incredible. And it took over the gaming world when it released on February 25th. This was just incredible. Absolutely amazing game. Probably the biggest RPG of the year. And just, that's why I was talking about Horizon having rough timing, because it came out 3 days before this, and then Elden Ring just took it, swept it away. Now, it still did good. Horizon still sold 10 million plus, but, really went under the radar with Elden Ring coming out right after. So, really incredible open world action RPG with so much to choose from and be involved in. It was excellent, excellent RPG and a really good time. Next up is very different. It's Triangle Strategy. It came out March 4th for the Switch alone. It would come out onto PC later, but this was a throwback style tactical strategy RPG, very much in the vein of Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, unlike that, you weren't changing jobs for your person. You got new people that would fulfill different jobs, and so it required more switching of your units as opposed to changing the unit you had. There are lots to pick from, lots of optional ones. The story was standout, absolutely incredible, with branching paths that, you know, the golden route, if they actually call that, right? The golden route requires a few decisions that are a little off and that you maybe wouldn't think of. Very replayable because of those different options, and each one a little different. How you handle missions affects the ending. Really, really good game. The big part they played was kind of this decision making where you would convince people to go with the decision you wanted. I felt like that wasn't as interesting as they were hoping it would be, but it still gave something else to the game, something in between battles that mattered. And yeah, it was a very good strategy RPG. I think it's about an 83 on Metacritic, which is a very good, respectable score. How Long to Beat has it at like 30 to 50 hours, so it's in that range. Yeah, it's a very, very good title. So yeah, Triangle Strategy was a really great RPG thrown on the Switch. It's better on the PC, so if you play on that at all, I highly recommend that just because of the limitations of the Switch. That said, if you like portable and you don't have a Steam Deck, then the Switch is a great way to go. All right, next up at number 9, coming out March 17th, was Anno Mutationem. Now, this is a different kind of game, right? This has a bit of a side-scrolling action game. I didn't even know much about it, and to be honest, this is still on my backlog that's growing a mile a day. But this is a really cool, unique kind of cyberpunk aesthetic. The main character is super cool. The different outfits you get for her is awesome. Metacritic, it's like a 78. It's short too, probably 10 to 20 hours tops, but really cool, engaging story. Awesome action combat. Yeah, very cool game. A short bite-sized one, but I just thought it was a really good indie RPG. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this came out of that China Hero project that Sony partners with, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, it's much smaller. Obviously, I don't have a lot to say because I haven't gotten to this one yet, but definitely one to check out, especially for a shorter RPG you might be interested in. All right, next up is Stranger of Paradise, which came out March 18th. And this came out on basically everything but the Switch, right? Now this is that Neo team that built a Final Fantasy game that's kind of a reimagining of the first Final Fantasy. This is that chaos, right? Which is a super amazing meme that gets used all the time and it's super fun. But this has a ton of RPG, right? There's so many avenues you can go in, so many classes and different styles you can play, and you're constantly switching and learning. I've only played the demo of this game. It is on my backlog, as probably a bunch of this list will be, but it is very, very cool. The aesthetic is amazing. If you like this style of combat, right? It's faster Dark Souls, I guess. How you explain Neo or Stranger of Paradise is kind of difficult because it has Dark Souls, it has some Dark Souls influence for sure, but it's its own thing. It's much faster and everything's quicker. Everything is more dexterity, right? Everything's fast, but super fun. Super, super fun. When I did play the demo and I loved it. And I could tell I could sink a bajillion hours into a game like this. Officially, you go to like How Long to Beat, 20 hours, give or take, but most people I know put way more than that, like 40, 50 hours, and then it's released expansion after expansion. Now, the thing to note, if you're getting into this game, the expansions require you to up the difficulty every time. So the first one, you go in max difficulty. When you go to the second DLC, you gotta go to the difficulty above that. And so if that's not your thing, you're not gonna play these DLCs, which I know probably is not mine. I don't mind difficulty like, you know, Dark Souls or Elden Ring or whatever, but to keep raising up, like, especially to where you're like, I'm getting one shot even though I'm like max level with high armor or whatever, that just kind of ticks me off. I don't know that I'm made for that. But the base game I'm really interested in and definitely want to get to. Metacritic was not kind. On the PS5, its Metacritic score is a 72, which is fair, right? That's like that middle of the road. And I think that it just really depended on you as the player, because the people who like this game love this game. The people who don't like this game hate it, right? And so it's just very polarizing, which brings it into the middle when you take a bigger group of scores like that. But I think that's fine. It's fun if you enjoy any of that kind of cheeky, cheesy humor, especially with the main character being way too serious, right? So it's all going to be kind of based on you as a player, but I still think this is one of the more important RPGs that came out last year in 2022, and certainly deserves a look. All right, next up is this game called Relayer. Now, this is a mech strategy RPG game. Okay, it's a very anime inspired, so the anime characters, the stories over the top, all of that. This is another one on my backlog that I want to get to, and I have no idea when I will, but it just looks awesome. It actually has a great Metacritic score, sitting at a 77, which is pretty darn incredible for that. Playtime, again, varies significantly. It seems like 40 hours is kind of the average, but if you are someone who likes to get a lot of it done, it's closer to 100, so a lot of variability there. But I love the art style in this game. I'm not typically a mech person, right? I know that Armored Core 6 just is coming out right now as I'm doing this video, and people are loving it, and I think it looks cool. I don't know that that's gonna be my kind of game. I'm just not typically into mech, even like mech anime or whatever. It's not usually my thing. But there's just something about this game that draws me to it. I think part of it's that strategy stuff. I told you, like I said before, I love that style of game. But also just the characters seem intriguing, the story as a whole, and what it might, you know, the different options and things that, what they might mean. I don't know. If you play this, let me know what you think. It seems to be hitting pretty high for above its weight, you know, maybe. Either way, I just think it has a really cool aesthetic. I think the idea of it looks good. Strategy RPGs are fun, and so yeah, I think it looks really fun and really enjoyable. So if that's something on your radar, make sure you check it out. But it came out on March 24th for the PlayStations only. I think it did eventually is on PC, or maybe it was PC before. I'm not really sure. So if you know that, let me know in the comments too. But that said, I thought this certainly deserved a spot on the list of RPGs from last year. Next up is number 12, which is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which came out March 25th. This came out on everything but the Switch. Now, Metacritic is kind of funky. There's not older systems, there's not enough to go on. It's actually kind of hard to find for some reason on that site, but it did give it a 76, so pretty fair score. The how long to beat is on the shorter side, maybe around 20 to 30 hours. 40 if you're really doing everything. Now this is kind of an interesting one, right? Because this throws you into like a medieval kind of board game D&D structure, but within Borderlands. When they first announced it, I was excited because I was thinking we're going more medieval weapons, but with Borderlands kind of spin on it. Like, you know, bows and crossbows and stuff. And there is some of that. You definitely have more melee stuff, but you still get tons of guns, which just kind of throws a loop in it for me. So I never did jump into it. That said, I enjoy Borderlands games, so I probably should. I probably would have a fun time with it, but I don't know, just not at the top of my list. But it's still, I think it's a big game, right? From Gearbox, who's a pretty big studio, and it's a, you know, good first-person shooter RPG, which there's not a ton of those. And so I think you have to include this when you put on the list. It's big production. It's not like this is a cheap indie game. They put a lot of money into it, and a 76 is a really respectable score. A lot of people liked it quite a bit. I think swimming in 7s is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Although it's even closer to the 8 than the 7s. So I don't know a lot about this game, but it's a Borderlands game. And so you should know kind of ahead of time if that's your style of humor or not. Borderlands has a very unique style of humor. If you like that, you're gonna enjoy the game. If you don't like it, you're not gonna have a good time, right? It'll just grate on your nerves. That said, if you don't like the humor, but you like the combat of it, then you could probably just turn the sound off and watch a show or a podcast or something while you play. Who knows? You know, everyone's different. But that said, I think it has to be included on a list like this because it is a big RPG. It is a big game. A lot of people do really love the Borderlands series. And so it's important that you include that on the bigger list of RPGs for the year, right? I think that's pretty smart. Next up, we got number 13. And I really debated on this one. This came out April 7th, and this is the port, re-release, whatever, of Chrono Cross. Now, I debated on this not because it's not good. I love Chrono Cross. I have amazing nostalgic memories that of just love for this game. The music, whew, incredible music. That said, it's a re-release of an old game. It's slightly remastered. Like, they didn't do a lot with it, right? There's not a lot of updates, there's not a lot of change, they didn't do a lot to it, and so it's hard for me to justify that it's a new game of this year, because it's not a new game. But I don't think remasters, remakes should like be cut from a list just because they're based on or just because they were an older title. They're still a game that came out that year, and so I decided in the end to include it. That said, How Long to Beat just keeps it at the regular, right? It doesn't even have the Radical Dreamer edition or whatever, but this RPG can be 30 to 60 hours plus, depending on how you play and what you go for. If you go for all the ultimates, how many characters you get, the way you play it, right? I love the story in this game. Not as good as Chrono Trigger, probably, but still a really good story. The combat's a little funky, and if you're having a hard time, I recommend watching a video. If you need that, let me know. I'll totally make one for you. It's got a very different style of combat, and so it kind of involves some math and understanding how to set your points and reset them and stuff like that. So if you need help, let me know. But it's a different style of combat, which I really appreciated. There's a lot of customization in that because you could set up the characters with the moves you wanted. Has Glenn, best character, number 1, best character. There's some dual text in there that you have to find. Like you might not even get the characters, so you won't know they're there. Pretty awesome. It's really good stuff. Great game. I highly recommend it. I love that it's on modern platforms, right? I don't have to try and dig it up on a PC or dig out my PS1 and the disc to play it. I know some people love getting out retro stuff. I am not one of those. I have my system set up. I just want to play on that. I don't want to have to dig it up. I don't want to emulate it. I will if I have to, but I don't want to. I just want it to play on what I have. This is what this edition does, is it brings it to modern platforms, makes it very accessible. It's like 20 bucks on PlayStation Store, regularly goes on sale for 10, so it's not a big ask money-wise either. So yeah, definitely think that deserves a list. That was a good release last year. You know, some nostalgia. Gotta include some nostalgia, I think. Okay, number 14 is King Arthur Knight's Tale. Now, this came out April 26th. It came out to PC only, and it came out of early access. So technically it was playable before, but this is the official 1.0 release. Now, this is a tactical strategy RPG in kind of a reverse Arthurian legend game. The thing about it, you control 4 knights. I haven't played it, so don't judge me. If you know it better, let me know. But my understanding is you get 4 knights, and that's your team the whole way through. And so there's a lot of strategy, and you're regularly facing way more enemies than who you have control of. And so there's a lot of strategy of figuring out how to defend yourselves or to seclude enemies so you can take them out quickly, or setting things up for chain reactions to make sure that you do damage while not taking much. But there's a lot of customization in setting up your knights and their moves and how you're doing it and how you're backing them up and all that kind of thing. There's a little bit of a town builder esque thing in your kingdom. Interesting story. Yeah, so seems pretty good. It comes in right in that 70s. It's a 76 on Metacritic right now. It seems to run that 30 to 50 hours. So, I mean, it's kind of right in this typical range of RPGs that we're running with this year. It's a good game. Is it the best of the year? No, but it's a good one if you're a strategy RPG fan, if you like kind of that Arthurian legend stuff, this kind of throws it in there. Pretty fun. It's pretty dark, so be prepared for that. But again, I believe there's a demo. Correct me if I'm wrong, so you can kind of check it out. And also, if you do Steam, I mean, Steam has that 2-hour window, right? So you can buy the game, try it out. You don't like it, refund within 2 hours, and you're good to go. Next up at number 15 is Salt and Sacrifice. Now, this is an indie Souls-like 2D platformer RPG, right? So think Hollow Knight-esque, but much smaller. The character models are kind of funky, but this is the second game by this team. Salt and Sanctuary is the first one. It's a Metroidvania. Really fun, okay? I really enjoy these kind of games. Salt and Sanctuary is one that I have played a lot of, really enjoyed. The art style is a little funky. It's not my favorite, for sure, but the gameplay is on point. It's difficult, but not impossible. It's fun. You can do them co-op, which is really cool. The Metroidvania stuff is good. As you gain new powers, gain new stuff, you can get farther and get further. The idol system is really interesting. So if you don't know what that is in this game, when you get to like save points, you get idols as you travel and find in treasures and whatever. And putting those idols at save points can bring certain vendors to that point, but then they are stuck there. So blacksmith or a shop or a weapon sales or whatever, all that stuff, you pick where it goes. And so there's a little bit of strategy there of, okay, I got a new save point, and yeah, it'd be nice to upgrade my weapons, but I'm not that much farther, and so I could probably pretty easily get back to the old ones, so maybe I won't use it yet, or like, I just opened up a door or a gate or something, so I can easily get back to the old one, so let's wait and set them up at the next one, that kind of thing. It's really enjoyable mechanic, I thought. The bosses are really good. Really good in these games. Metacritic, it's in the low 70s, so it's at 73, right? Again, that we're swimming in sevens for a lot of these. That's the way it should be, right? The standard game is going to be around that 7, and then you're going to have a few standouts that are in the 80s and 90s. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Playtime too, this is a bit of a shorter. This is a Metroidvania that runs in that like 15 to 20 hours. You can, of course, if you're exploring everything, want to get everything, you look more towards 30 maybe. But it's still on the shorter side, which is good. You gotta have those bite-sized RPGs to kind of, fit in between the big marquee titles you're trying to play. Yeah, so Salt and Sacrifice released May 10th on PC and the PlayStations. I'm pretty sure it's out to Xbox and Switch now, but I could be wrong, so, correct me if that's not true. Yeah, so that's a good pickup there on me. All right, next up at number 16 is Souldiers, which came out June 2nd on everything. Now, Souldiers is another kind of Metroidvania, somewhat Souls-like RPG, kind of 2D action style. This is way more colorful. You get to pick, a couple different classes or whatever, and then you go for it. Now, this is fast and fluid. The combat is really fun in this one. Again, this one came out right in that 7s, right? It's 76, so we're still swimming in 7s on this baby. This one's longer though. This isn't your 15-20 hours Salt and Sacrifice. This one runs more like 40 hours, maybe more, 50, 60, depending on how you play and how much you search out everything. But what I felt was fun about this, and again, I haven't played much of this one, I just tried it out. So this is a backlog game though. This is one I'm constantly watching. It's like $20 usually, but goes on sale pretty regularly. And so I keep thinking I'm gonna pick this one up and run through it, but there's just no time for anything. That said, what's fun about this one is it has that difficulty of, kind of that Hollow Knight, Dark Souls, whatever, with combat that really matters and a really fluid system. But it's so colorful, it gives a different feel to it, right? Like, there's just something kind of enjoyable about that, I think, just because it's different. And so really fun option that you can throw yourself at. It's because it's kind of that Metroidvania too. There's a lot of kind of replayability and how you're going to do it. It's one that you can come back to over and over again. And so I think this is a really good addition to the list for an RPG. Really kind of a different palette, right? In these Metroidvania RPGs. I love them. And I think this is a really good option. So, all right, next up at number 17, releasing June 10th, is Symphony of War, the Nephilim Saga. Now, this is a Fire Emblem style game. Okay, it very much takes that into account. It's got a unique mechanic where you can kind of pool soldiers together. So you have your hero or whatever, and then you can put other soldiers kind of with them. And then when you go to battle, they all work together. And kind of unique and cool. I don't know a whole lot more than that. I haven't gotten to this one either. Shocker, you know, it's like I can't play 35 RPGs in a year. I know, terrible. Kids and a job and stuff, you know, what do you do? But this one scored really well. This is an 81 on Metacritic. This is PC only. It might come out to consoles later, or I guess it's, yeah, I think later was what they were saying. I don't know if that's still the case, but it's 81 on Metacritic. This is a little bit longer. You're talking 30 to 40 hours. Obviously more if you want to go for all the stuff, but it's another kind of strategy RPG, but that little different take, right? Not the Final Fantasy Tactics style, but the Fire Emblem style, which is the different versions of kind of these strategy or tactical RPGs. But very cool, looks good, the animations are good, it's an indie team, it's not very expensive, right? I think, again, this is in that $20 range. I could be wrong, though. Let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, just a really good addition. Another solid RPG, but this one even crossed a little bit, right? This one jumped into the 80s. I mean, so again, Metacritic's not the end all be all, but it is a good barometer of how good a game is, and this one really kind of hit when it dropped, so another good option for you. All right, next up is Live Alive, or Live Alive, or Live Alive, or Live Alive, or however the heck you're supposed to say that. I think it's Live Alive, but whatever. That came out July 22nd on the Switch. It has since come out on other platforms, at least I think it was after that. Either way, whatever. So this is a remake of an old game that was Japan only, right? That we didn't get here in the West, but it's kind of like Saga Frontier in that there are multiple heroes and you play each one as kind of a bite-sized story, and then you move on to the next one. There's some crossover, there's some, you know, connections and meetings and stuff, but primarily you're playing 8 different stories. Some people love that, some people hate that. When Saga Frontier dropped all those years ago back on the PS1, a lot of people hated it. They didn't like that. But Live Alive now, I think more people are kind of into that bite-sized story, and so it did really well. Now this is a shorter game in general. It's like 20 to 30 hours, pretty much max. I mean, 30 hours, unless you're really struggling, you're gonna complete the game. Once again, this is an 81 on Metacritic, so another high-scoring game. It was a good game. It's a great Switch title because of those bite-sized stories. It offers a lot in terms of variability between the stories. Each one's different. Moves are different. Aesthetic is different. And so it's a really good option. It's really cool that it came back out west where it wasn't before. And yeah, just a really good option. It's a really cool RPG to come out in 2022. All right, next up is a game called Lost Epic. Now, I would be willing to bet that out of this list, this is probably the one most of you have not heard of. This is a 2D side-scrolling action RPG. Think along the lines of Odin Sphere from the PS2 or remastered on the PS4. This one didn't score particularly well. That said, there's only 4 reviews. So it's a little indie game. There wasn't a lot put into it. There's not even a review score from a player score. I mean, it's just a much smaller RPG. It has a really cool look to it. You kind of make your character in the beginning and get to play them through. The art style is really good. The action looks good. Now again, this is one I haven't gotten to. It's on the list. There's not enough information even to give like how long to beat. It gives you a really rough estimate of like 9 to 35 hours or something. But I think it looks cool. I think the gameplay looks fun. I like the 2D side-scrolling action RPGs, and again, it kind of looks like a bite-sized story, probably 10 to 15 hours, somewhere in that range. And so a nice little short palate cleanser in between stuff. It was a cool indie thing to be dropped that year. I think that it deserves a place on here because we need to lift up these indie RPGs that are putting out stuff that's a little different, that gives options that aren't readily available everywhere. And so I can't guarantee you how good this one is. It's got middling scores, but because not enough people have played it, make sure that look for a review, or if you are interested and need a review, let me know and I'll go play it and then let you guys know how it turns out. It is definitely on my list anyway, and so I'm hoping to get to that eventually. So just another one to kind of have on the radar as you're looking for things to play. This one came out in 2022 and is readily available PC and the PlayStations, and it's also on Switch, so you can kind of find it wherever. But yeah, good little option there. Next up at number 20, coming out July 29th, is Digimon Survive. Now, this one is very different than we were all thinking when it first got announced. This came out as a strategy RPG / visual novel. Has a way more serious tone than we're used to seeing with Digimon. Because of that, the scores on this thing are crazy everywhere. They are all over the place. If you just go to Metacritic and type in Digimon Survive, you'll see the PC version has an 83, the Xbox One at a 70, the Switch at a 77, and the PlayStation also at a 70. That's a 13-point range as overall scores, not even in individual scores. Just crazy the opinions on this one. This is a longer game. It's gonna play right around that 40-hour mark, but I think part of it is gonna be the visual novel, right? Not everyone likes visual novels. Some people really don't gel with that kind of storytelling. I think if it's done well, it's fine. I like visual novels. It's like reading a book, but you have, you know, it's like a picture book. Oftentimes they're moving. I don't see a problem with it, but I understand that not everyone likes that. The other thing is gonna be the strategy RPG and how involved that gets. Depending on what you like, you may or may not enjoy the depth or lack of in this game, right? Depending on how you feel about it. The darker tone, I think Digimon is typically, it's more serious than Pokemon, but it's always been kind of fun and bright and colorful. And this game is not as much, it's a little bit darker. And so I think that all of that kind of played because expectations were going to be something different than what was delivered. That said, Digimon Survive is a well-made game, well-made story with interesting tone and complexity within. I think that we have to be able to accept different kinds of storytelling, and it may not be our cup of tea. It doesn't mean we have to like it, right? It doesn't mean it's going to be a 9 out of 10 for you or for me, but I do think it's important that we broaden our horizons to the different styles of storytelling, and this one brings that in this visual novel style, and then the strategy RPG. And I think, you know, those two aren't unheard of together. The Udaware Romano games are that way, and there are definitely others. Agarist War played somewhat like that, if you played those at all. And so that pairing is not unheard of, but it is not as well known in the bigger gaming space, right? And so I do think that played into the score variation. That said, I think looking over 2022 as a whole, this brings a different element and a franchise that's known that really should be on the radar. This is one that I want to spend more time with, right? I've touched it a little bit, but I haven't delved into it like I'd like to. And so I can't give a score on it myself, but I do think the style of this game is something that intrigues me, and I hope that we can find space for things like this that maybe branch out of their typical styling and aesthetic and storytelling method, because I want more options for developers to bring us the story they want to tell, and that we can be receptive to that. It doesn't mean we have to like it again, but just the more variety is good. More option is good. And yeah, so I think Digimon Survive just needs to kind of, it's important that it's there. All right, next up at number 21 is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is Switch exclusive. Which to me, and I know if you love the Switch, you're not gonna love this, but to me, that's its biggest downfall. If this game could have come out on PC or PlayStation, I probably would have gotten to it. I love the art of it. Everything I hear about the story, love it, but the way these games run on Switch really kind of tears it up for me. I know some people said they haven't had problems, but I have had nothing but problems with my Switch. We've had a couple of Switch systems in this house, and they have all broken down. And one of them in particular, we were very, very, very careful with, and it just didn't matter. And so I haven't gotten to any of the Xenoblade games. I want to play them. They're all available on Switch, which is amazing, but I just don't have confidence in that system. And I know a lot of people love it, and so I'm all for that. I'm glad it's an option. I hope that when they bring out the successor, the Switch 2 or whatever they're gonna call it, that they can maybe, you know, strengthen the internals or whatever so that it doesn't have as many problems, because I would love to play these games. They look amazing to me. The story of this one in particular it really intrigues me, and I want to get to it. But this was one of the highest rated games of the year. This was an 89 on Metacritic. The public outcry of this game, they love this game. People just adore it. It is a lengthy game. We're talking 60 hours at a minimum. The 100 to 150 is super common. So it's a time sink. You are putting time in. You know, this is has that somewhat MMO style battle system, but big story with branching characters and all the different intertwining stories and stuff. Right up my alley. I just wish it wasn't on the Switch, but hopefully eventually we can get a Switch 2 or something that I can trust, and I'll get it then and can play these games. We'll see. I'd like to get to them eventually, but who knows. Anyway, but I'm sure you watch this channel, I bet you love these games. If you play them, let me know how good it is, or maybe I'm wrong and it's not good. But yeah, this has to be on the list. It's one of the highest rated. It rated higher even than Horizon. It is a beloved game, and so one of the top marquee RPGs of 2022. All right, next up at number 22 is Thymesia. Thymesia? What? How the heck do you say this name? I don't know. However you say it. This came out August 18th on the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. This is kind of a indie dev, smaller bite-size, Bloodborne, Dark Souls style game. I know people hate that term, the Soulsborne, whatever, but I mean, it's just true. The Souls games have developed such a niche in the genre that Soulsborne is a style. It is a subgenre now. I mean, that is not, people don't get mad at that, right? That is throwing honor on games that you love, right? Dark Souls has made such an impact on the industry that we have to have a whole subgenre after it. Is this as good as Souls? Of course not. Of course not. I mean, FromSoft know what they're doing. This is in the same styling, okay? And this has kind of that cool Plague Doctor looking character. You got like 4 different spirit weapons or something. It's hard to tell, but it's much shorter. This is like a 6 to 10, maybe 15-hour game. It's a middling score, 68 on Metacritic, but yeah, I mean, the range is right in that window. 65 to 70 is pretty common, so it's basically swimming in sevens, but maybe just a little sub that, right? But it's short, pretty cheap. So right now, I believe you can even play it on PlayStation Extra. I don't know if it's on Game Pass, but it's on the PlayStation Plus Extra or whatever. And so, you know, you can play it on a subscription. Give it a shot and see what you think. But I thought when it came out, it had a good look to it. I've heard the combat feels pretty good, which really matters in a Souls-like game. And so, you know, I just want to have on the radar, want to try out, especially if you're into that style of action RPG. And it's a shorter bite-sized one, so it gives some real option there and something else to try. All right, next up at number 23 is Soul Hackers 2. This came out August 26th on everything but the Switch, and this was kind of a surprise when this got announced, right? I mean, Soul Hackers is an older game, hasn't been around in a while, and so when they announced Soul Hackers 2, most people were surprised. A lot of people didn't even know what it was, hadn't even heard of the franchise. The thing is essentially it's another Persona style game. I love Persona, right? I have Persona 5 as one of my favorite games of all time. That said, if you play a Persona game and immediately try to play another one, most of the monsters are the same, right? So these demons or whatever, they add a few here and there, but they don't change a lot. And so it'd be like playing a new Pokemon game with the same 150 every time. And so that can kind of get a little old. But outside of that, I mean, the characters are new, the story's new and stuff. So depends on why you play them, right? But if the monsters or the demons matter to you, do one every couple of years or you'll get burnt out. This one got kind of middling reviews again. This is swimming in sevens. It's got a way higher score on Xbox. It's like a 77. On everything else, it's more like a 71, 72, right in that range. But this is a big story RPG with big main characters and a lot of story. It's very story heavy. It's a longer game. You're probably talking in that 50 to 60 hour range. I think the characters look cool. I think the story is fun. Obviously, if you like the Persona style games and you do the mixing the demons and you know, upgrading them, all that kind of stuff, this should be right up your alley. It's on Game Pass, and I believe it's on it might be on PlayStation Extra, I'm not sure about that, but it is on Game Pass, so it's very accessible now. And yeah, just a good solid RPG that you can sink your time into, sink your teeth into, especially if you love the Persona style games. And so yeah, it's a good option. Okay, next up at number 24 is the DioField Chronicle. Now this came out September 22nd on everything, I think it's on everything. Anyway, this is another one of those weird cases where the Xbox score on Metacritic is like a 78 and everywhere else it's like a 71, 72. So it's kind of swimming in sevens. Shocker. That's right where it should be. I actually loved this game. I really enjoyed it. I platinumed it. It's not that hard of a platinum, so if that's something you like to do, then this is a pretty easy. You're talking maybe 30 hours, I would say. The thing about this game is it's kind of middling. The combat is good. I like it. I enjoy it. I thought the concept was there, but they needed some more to it. It's like you get a few hours, maybe 5-10 hours into the game, and you kind of have everything. And every upgrade after that just doesn't do enough. Doesn't change it enough, doesn't add a lot to it. So while I enjoyed it, it needed more to it. The story, there was some real intrigue there. There was some interesting backstory. I liked the characters. They had one that was kind of wackadoodle that really kind of pulled the story that was super good. The main character is cool. So I really liked it. I did. I wanted more. I felt like the story didn't have enough to it, especially at the end. I felt like there was so much more that they could delve into. And so what I'm really hoping is that they did enough with this team at Square to go for another, to take it further, right? To take this combat and do more with it, to take the story and go further. I don't know that it made enough money to do that, but I hope it did because I really enjoyed it. I thought the game was super fun. Basically one tactic carried me through the entire game. I didn't have to change it at all. And everything was fast. I almost never had to replay a level to get the like achievements or whatever for it. I almost always did it the first time. There's a few here and there that had a little bit of complexity, but for the most part, you just kind of use the same thing over and over again. Now, don't get me wrong, I liked it, but you know, mixing it up would have been good. And so we'll see, but I thought this was pretty good. You know, I really enjoyed this. If you haven't checked it out, you can get it cheaper now, and definitely worth a look, I would say. After that came another Square Enix middle-of-the-road game in Valkyrie Elysium. Valkyrie Elysium came out like a week later on the 29th of September for PlayStation only. It did eventually come out on PC, I believe. I can't remember if that was the same time or later, but I think it was later. Anyway, Valkyrie Elysium is an action RPG. It's based on, you know, a series was around, you know, Valkyrie Profile, which they actually did re-release, Valkyrie Lenneth, I think what they called it, which is awesome, because you can play that older game now, kind of updated to the modern consoles, which is really good. But Valkyrie Elysium got even lower scores. It runs 65. Part of that, I think, is it didn't have an Xbox version, and so there wasn't as many people there. But also, it's kind of, some people really did enjoy it. I know a few people who really loved it, like the action combat and the different characters and stuff that you got, but definitely probably not good enough, right? It's like they didn't tell the story good enough. There wasn't enough to the combat. So very similar, I felt like, to the DioField in that way. Just a good idea, a cool option, but not taken far enough, which is a bummer. I hope that they keep doing stuff like this. This to me is kind of like a B tier RPG, right? And I don't want those to disappear because I find a lot of them fun. I like the variety that they give, I like the ideas that they go with, and I love it when Square does these kind of different RPGs than just their main stuff. I think that they're fun. I think that they give a good option. I love DioField, and then Valkyrie Elysium I haven't got to yet. It is on my list though. I want to play it. Valkyrie Profile, or again, you can get Valkyrie Lenneth. It's only 20 bucks and cheap all the time. So you can always try that too. That's a really good game that a lot of people love. But I think Valkyrie Elysium has a good art style. I like the way they did that. And I think there's fun to be had in this game. Just worth at least keeping an eye on. And I think worth, part of the story of 2022 is that we had a good amount of these kind of second tier RPGs that aren't the biggest budget, but they're not, you know, cheap indie only, but it's that middle of the road stuff. And I think that's important. I think that's good to have as part of our RPG journey, if you will. All right, next up at number 26 is Asterigos, Curse of the Stars. Might have said that wrong, but I don't know. This came out October 11th on everything but the Switch, and this is kind of an action RPG. My understanding is it's somewhat Souls-like, but not fully, just has elements of that. But it's kind of has a little bit of difficult in the combat, where it matters how you move and parry timing and all of that kind of stuff. It's got a cool art style. This is an indie RPG, but that's it. I mean, it has it's got a good 75 on Metacritic. It's like 30 hours long, give or take. And so I really think there's a lot to this game. This is one that has been on my radar. I think I saw it at, like, you know, some PlayStation show or something like that, where it popped up, and it has a really cool, cartoony, unique art style. Kind of reminds me of Phoenix Rising, if you played that. And you know, I just think it has a good look. It looks fun. I don't know anything about the story, so if you do, or if you've played it, let me know what you think. But yeah, I think this was a kind of maybe a bigger budget indie title that I thought they just did really well with. I thought they knocked it out of the park, especially in the aesthetic department. And so, based on these scores, it seems like the gameplay was at least good. I hope it was. I want to get to it. You know, my stack of backlog is about 100 miles long. One of these days, we should do a backlog video. We'll just talk about what's in our backlog, because it's kind of big. Anyway, but yeah, this is another good addition to the RPG story of 2022 that came out and did really well for itself. All right, next up at number 27 is Lost Eidolons, which came out October 13th on PC. Now, understand, it just released on consoles this year. So if this is interesting to you and you're not a PC player, then it is an option for you now on your console, which is pretty exciting. This is a strategy RPG, very much in the vein of Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. It's got a little bit higher on the production value than a lot of these other ones have had. It's got moments, kind of like Fire Emblem, in between battles where you talk to people and maybe find some chests or whatever and develop a relationship with your people, which I love that stuff. The art style I thought is pretty good. Some people find it maybe too standard or something, but I didn't think so. I thought it looked good. The combat looks good. The magic looks cool. Really pretty good production value for a strategy RPG, honestly. So many of them are kind of that 2D style or whatever. But this got a 75 on Metacritic, and that seems really fair to me. On the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, we don't have a Metacritic score yet, so you know, can't really go off of that. 9 positive and 4 mixed on Metacritic, so pretty good stuff. It runs pretty long. You're talking 50 hours, give or take. And yeah, I mean, I just think it looks really good. I think the strategy RPGs really kind of hit their stride in 2022. As we just mentioned several of them. Yeah, this one is an indie studio, and they've done a banger job. I think it looks great. Yeah, again, it just came out on console, so that should open it up even more. And it's got some pretty good reviews out there. And yeah, hopefully it does really well for itself, because I love these games, as I've said, and the more of them we can get that are of good quality, and the more budget they have, the better they can make them. So I'm all for it, and this looks really good. Yeah, so really interesting and cool part of 2022 was Lost Eidolons. All right, next up at number 28 is Star Ocean: The Divine Force. Now, this came out October 27th on everything but the Switch, and it sits right in that middle ground. This is another 70 on Metacritic, right around there. It's a 30 to 50 hour game, depending on how you play. Let me help you out a bit. I know the character models look a little funky. It didn't have the budget that it probably could have used, but the action combat is super fun. Exploration is really good. I highly recommend you put it on Japanese voice acting and then read and skip through dialogue. It's very, very slow as far as the talking. It's not that the voice actors did bad, so don't hear me wrong, especially if you know the voice actor or anything like that, right? It's not that the English voice actors were bad. That's not what I'm saying. It's just slow. And so I think this game, to maintain its enjoyment, everything's gotta be fast. You run fast, you can do your little glide thing or whatever, and so you can get around the map and combat and everything super quick. And so if you do that and you keep English voice acting and you wait for them to say everything, it just takes everything and slows it down to a screeching halt. In my opinion, that'll just ruin the experience. So either don't mind that you're skipping through the dialogue on English, but that grates on me, so I can't do it. So I put on Japanese, you read, and you just slam through it. It's good enough. Like, the story is interesting, so don't, I still recommend at least getting the main part of it at least. But don't sit and wait for them to talk through it. It'll take too long. So you go through it, but the combat is super fun. The story is pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. The production values are okay, right? It's not the best looking game, but definitely not. Character models are rough in places. Some of them look better than others, but you know. But I mean, most of the time you're looking at the back and you run around beating stuff up, and it's that part of the game is super fun. Really, really good. So highly encourage you to try it. I thought it was a really fun time. It's another kind of B tier Japanese RPG, but I really liked it, and I thought it's worth your time. I thought it was a good move for Star Ocean, and hopefully that pushes them farther to keep making them, because I enjoy Star Ocean games. You know, I know second story is coming out soon this year, and I hope that does well for them too. That HD 2D look is really cool. But this big 3D one was still really good, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you would give it a shot. All right, next up at number 29 is Harvestella. Now, this came out November 4th on Switch and PC. It runs about the middle of the 70s, 73, 74 on Metacritic. It's a long game, sitting around 60 hours plus. Now, obviously, this is one of these kind of farming games, and so it gives a lot of option for them. But think like Harvest Moon or Rune Factory or Animal Crossing or one of those, but with a more adult art style, right? It's more of a standard anime style as opposed to that kind of chibi kid look. I love those games, so I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying this one has a little bit more of a adult version, anime style. I like the way it looks. It's got a cool gameplay loop. If you like those kind of games, I think this is a good option. It has some combat, it has, the harvesting, the planting, it has developing relationships with people, it has all the stuff in that kind of cozy game you like, but in a little bit of a cooler art style, in my opinion. Cool character designs. This was this is a killer game. I really hope that at some point they bring this one over to like PlayStation or something, like maybe it had a year exclusivity or something, because I think Platinum Hunters in particular would get a kick out of this one. Good addition. It's a cool game. It's a, you know, a good kind of cozy RPG, but a full RPG nonetheless. And so that was a good option that came out on November 4th. All right, next up at number 30 is Tactics Ogre Reborn. Now this came out November 11th on PC, Switch, and the PlayStations. Big strategy RPG. This is an old school tactical RPG that they remastered, remade, whatever, and brought up to modern platforms. It's an 86 on Metacritic. Big time, big score. This is a huge game. You're talking 90 hours easy to beat this. Now, here's the thing you gotta know about this, okay? It is a old school tactical RPG, very much Final Fantasy Tactics. Okay, this isn't Fire Emblem. This works more like Tactics. The thing you have to know about this game, it's good. The story is incredible. The characters are really interesting. This is not for the faint of heart. This is a difficult strategy game. Okay, they level cap you, so you can't just over level and power everything over, which it's kind of a bummer. I wish they didn't do that, but whatever. Your spells and abilities take up slots on your character, including items and stuff, and so there's a lot of careful strategy. Enemies are regularly a higher level and more powerful than you, and so your strategy really matters. Classes, you have to find a lot of them. Some of them you will just get through story, but a lot of them you have to kind of find your way through grinding and get to them and beat them and kill them over and over until you get a class item or recruit them. Let me just share this, okay? I love this game. Tons of good stuff in it, lots of hours of playtime. There's a little bit of problems with it. There's some issues here and there, in particular with difficulty is not exactly the right word, but the requirements they would have for you in levels that to kind of require you to have certain units without you knowing that ahead of time. So just know that that's there. You need to have a good range of units that you keep all of them up to date level wise and equipment wise, which can be expensive, but this game is one that expects you to do some grinding. It is part of the experience of this game. So be prepared for that. But that said, it is a good game. It's a well-made game. The story is good. The combat is very fun. But just know levels are not going to be your main thing. Good equipment, good strategy, good abilities are where you're going to find your success. So just be prepared for that. But good stuff. All right, next up at number 31 is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which came out November 18th. Switch only, of course. Now, if you're around gaming at all, you already know the story, right? Pokemon is a huge franchise that sells 20 million copies no matter what. They could screw up the game completely, it doesn't matter, they're gonna sell 20 million copies. Scarlet and Violet are on that path. They have sold, I think, 24 million or something like that. They got a low 70s Metacritic. The user score is in the tubes because they have terrible bugs that they don't patch and they don't fix. They're finally kind of opening up the world, and that's awesome. The Pokemon and stuff look great. The character designs are Pokemon designs, but they look good, but they just aren't managing their stuff well. So the performance really suffers. I don't know that they're gonna care because they just keep selling, but you never know, we'll see. That said though, you have to include Pokemon on a list like this because it's one of the biggest RPGs of the year. Pokemon is a light RPG, right? There's some RPG elements, but it's not a full-blown, huge, in-depth one. But they're good starter RPGs. Like if you had a kid or you're just getting interested in an RPG game style, Pokemon's a great starting point. That said, I don't know that these are the ones I'd start with. They seem to struggle a little bit. But, it is Pokemon. You can get 20 hours or 70 hours. I mean, you can just, tons of stuff there. Kids love them, adults love them. I mean, Pokemon that's what it is. It's just Pokemon. It's huge, it's fun, it's a known entity that's just gonna do well every year. And so you can't list a year that has Pokemon and not have it on there. It just has to be. So yeah, that's that one. All right, next up at number 32 is Marvel's Midnight Suns. This came out December 2nd for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. This is that Firaxis team that does XCOM that made this game. Has that card battle system, but this is a strategy RPG, but has a unique kind of card system. I mean, really good game. From all, you get some time where you get to know your superheroes. You make your own main character. It's a little bit darker story for a Marvel game. It's running in like mid 80 to 83, somewhere in there on Metacritic, depending on which platform you're on. It's a longer game. We're talking 40 hours minimum, probably 80 hours or so towards the top. It's got a good story and a lot of options in the playability because you're building your decks and setting stuff up for your characters. I know some people that really love this game, and so it's another really great option. I mean, just look at this. How many strategy RPGs am I talking about for 2022? Like, what a year. And I mean, 2023 right now is crazy. We'll get to that later, another video, but I mean, just looking back at 2022, what a year. What a year, especially strategy RPGs making a huge comeback this year. Good stuff. So yeah, Marvel's Midnight Suns is a good option, a good pickup towards the end of 2022. All right, next up at number 33 is Chained Echoes. This came out December 8th. Most people probably aren't getting to it till the beginning of 2023. That's when I played it, but this came out on everything. It's in Game Pass, it's on Switch, whatever. It's high Metacritic, so we're talking high 80s to 90, depending on your platform. Pretty long game, depending on how you play, but you can put in 40 to 100 hours in this one. There is a lot to do. I have a review on the channel, so if you want to know more, I'll have a link below. But this game is an incredible throwback RPG. You're thinking Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI. I mean, just the greats of that era. This fits right in there. Just an incredible RPG with awesome story, really good engaging combat. Again, it's on Game Pass, so you can just hop on there and play it. Really, really, really good. Looking forward to what this guy produces down the road. Nothing but good stuff, I think. Just really well written. This now, I think I said in my review, but just know this is a mature game. This is not it looks, like you played it as a kid, but it's not a kid game. It's very mature themes and stuff that they get into. So keep that in mind, but can't recommend this one enough. And what a way to finish out the year. I think because it passed the, I'm assuming this came out after the Game Award cutoff. Usually that's like end of November. So I could see this might sneak in and surprise people when it's on the 2023 list because, for Game Awards, I mean, because it's incredible. Yeah, so make sure you get on that one. Okay, next up at number 34, we are getting towards the end of the list here, is Dragon Quest Treasures, which came out December 9th for the Switch. It is a Switch only. I don't know if that's exclusive or timed exclusive. I don't know, we'll see. But it came out really well. It's got an 81 on Metacritic, it runs you 30 hours, give or take. It's, unlike the last one, this is very kind of more child-friendly, cutesy Dragon Quest RPG. Kind of plays from Dragon Quest 11, so I'm assuming you probably want to play that first. And then this takes Eric and his sister as kids and kind of runs through their story. It's supposed to be really fun and just like a good, wholesome time. I didn't hop onto this one, but I mean, it's a rated E for everyone. So this is absolutely one you could play with your kids or have give to your kids to play. This is just a fun, a little bit smaller, but good time RPG. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this one. It's very cutesy. It's probably more childlike than I want myself. But that said, it's a Dragon Quest styling, and it's hard to go wrong with that. It's a good style. Akira Toriyama knows what he's doing. He has very recognizable art, and yeah, overall seems pretty good. Okay, and last one on the list for me is Crisis Core Reunion. This came out December 13th on everything. It seems that the Switch is the worst place to play it, though still totally viable. But it runs in that 80-ish Metacritic score. The Switch is much lower. It's in the 70s. And I believe that's primarily to do with performance. And so that's why I recommend on something else. That said, play it where you like. But you know, this is an old PSP game that they have brought up to modern. They've changed the combat a little bit to make it more accessible. You have, you know, the art is more in line with the Final Fantasy remake, and it kind of all adds in and plays into the whole remake trilogy that they are in the middle of. And so, you know, this is Zack's story from Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it's Final Fantasy VII, you know? This game is well known across the entire gaming landscape for good reason. I mean, it's a big game. It's got incredible characters, and Zack is one that you barely get to know in the original game. He's just kind of talked about, but in this game you explore his story and a lot of kind of the, without giving stuff away, you explore stuff that matters for the rest of Final Fantasy VII. So, really good game. The change in the combat system was for the better. So I know there's a few people that are diehards that love the PSP version. Good for you, but for the vast majority of people, this version is by far the best and way more accessible. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a very good way to end the year. We got a couple of banger RPGs right there at the end, and then move right into 2023 where they just kept rolling. So this is an incredible time to be an RPG fan. 2022 was a heck of a year, and 2023 I think is only including and increasing that. This is a great time to be a gamer. There's just so much that's good to engage with. There's just not enough time to play all the good stuff, which is an amazing problem to have. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button. That helps out a ton. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We got RPG stuff coming out our ears. There's so many good games, not enough time to play them all. And yeah, we are looking forward to good stuff coming, and a bunch of good stuff still from before that we haven't gotten to. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.